I mean, one of the questions there about faith, I want to just hit really quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just have always connected with Doubting Thomas.
Yeah.
Let's shout out to Saint Thomas. Okay, the poor guy gets remembered as being Doubting Thomas.
Yeah, when all the guys doubted in the previous, they had Jesus before, and they're like, hey, show me. Well, and he came on later, and they had already said, hey, show us. We need to see the proof. And he's the only one.
Right.
They're like,
well, think of all of them on the boat, too. I mean, Peter's sinking. Every one of the disciples doubted.
It's ridiculous.
Jesus, I think the word is upbraided them when he saw them at the resurrection. I don't even know what that looks like. That sounds like a horrible experience. Jesus upbraided them. Okay, don't want to be there for that. But they all doubted,
It's true.
And sadly, in the church, Protestant and Catholic, there is not a place for people to doubt. And I was telling Emily about this. Some friends sent me, there's a lot of deconstruction happening in the church, right? Which, if you don't know what that means, essentially it's like you break down every Christian tenet that there is, every creedal, belief that we have, and you're essentially saying, it didn't happen. Or we don't know if God exists. How can there be a good God with evil? The resurrection didn't happen. The scriptures are all inerrant. They're good arguments. We need to engage with them, and there's great answers to them. But that's not happening a lot in the church right now, and I don't think we're giving people the space to doubt and to ask those questions.
Of the questions. Have you ever experienced doubt regarding your faith, and if so, how do you deal with it?
OMG, let me tell you. Yeah, I just want to say that initially, because this kind of pains me. So many people are just getting either shunned or rejected or I don't know, called so many different names just because maybe they're really struggling with the sexual teaching of the church, or they're really struggling with name the social justice issue, name the church's viewpoint on it. Here's my thing. Jesus hung out with a lot of people and he listened to a lot of people. So if I have a different viewpoint with someone, the funny thing is, as a Catholic, I'm never going to cancel you.
Yeah.
I am willing to listen to everything you have to say and engage with the idea. And I was just on a flight. I just flew a bunch. It was amazing. Sat next to a Protestant pastor. She was reading her scriptures. I was reading my morning prayer. I was like, hey, that's a great psalm. And she's like, oh, awesome. And we just blabbed for an hour.
Love that.
Had some different theological viewpoints. Had an amazing conversation. And I experience that all the time, and sadly there's just these blinders I feel like we have in the church where if you disagree with my viewpoint, whatever it is, we can't even be friends.
Right.
We can't even hang out together. We can't even go to a baseball game.
Yeah.
And I just feel like as a Catholic, if you look at JP2 or Mother Teresa or Thomas Aquinas, okay, we read a bunch of Aquinas. He quotes so many different thinkers. He essentially baptized all of Aristotle's work, who was a pagan. Okay, this is in the Summa Theologica, something like that. It's in the thing he wrote a lot about. He references a lot of different thinkers.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing, I'm reading Ratzinger, so many incredible intellects in the church, and they're pulling from many different sources. Sorry, this is really, I just need to say this.
Okay.
We just need to listen to each other more. In the church, okay? People are getting so polarized, and I'm just wow, can't we find some place? I'm an ENFJ on the Myers-Briggs, and I hate confrontation, so maybe that's something psychologically going on. But I think also Jesus maybe was an ENFJ, because in John 17, he prayed that his church would be one. Okay.
I didn't think you could classify Jesus in the Myers-Briggs,
right.
Just to be honest.
That's actually true. He would blow them all apart. That's a funny thing. We had to go through all, those tests and stuff. And you don't define yourself by your Myers-Briggs or whatever other thing. We're so much more complex and amazing
than a number
or letters
or anything.
FYI.
Yes.
But I just kind of want to get that out there. In the Catholic Church, I love listening to people. If you disagree with me, let's go enjoy a meal like Jesus did and talk about it.
Right.
And at least be friends about it. There's just this shutdown thing. If you disagree with me, you're just instantly looking to attack the person. Right. And this is happening in the church, outside of the church. As I'm studying to be a priest, I can't tell you how many opposing viewpoints I read this year in my curriculum.
Right.
Different philosophers, completely atheist, agnostic, go down the list. We read them. We are not narrow-minded thinkers. As Catholics, we are the most open-minded people ever. But this is what Chesterton said. He said, the mind is like the mouth. It's looking for something solid to chomp down on. we are very open-minded, but we do come to conclusions about certain things.
About what truth is.
About what truth is, and it's solid, and you need solid food. Like if you were walking around with your mouth open all day, one, it's extremely bad for you. Nasal breathing is really good for you.
Back to the doubt part, though.
It's gonna connect.
Okay.
So when I first went to Franciscan, we started studying philosophy and a lot of these opposing viewpoints, and it really led me into some super dark places of doubt. So we're studying epistemology, which is the study of knowledge, metaphysics, moral theology, all these, really amazing philosophies and theologies. But there's very smart people who have PhDs and MDs and all the letters you want, all the degrees you can think of, who have written really sophisticated work against Christianity. There is also a plethora, I'd say even more, human beings who have lived on this earth, who have PhDs, MDs, who have written incredible text affirming the Christian faith, from science to faith to philosophy to theology, psychology, sociology. Like the top thinkers in the world over the last 2,000 years, a lot of them have been Catholic. Stephen Barr has a book called Ancient Science, Modern Faith. Literally 3 pages of just names, like 1, 2, 3, just names of Catholics or Christians who have had some of the greatest scientific discoveries known today. So my doubts happened very early on for me because I started watching like really intense debates like when I was like 19. And honestly, this year at seminary, like it happened again. I'm studying to be a priest, and there were some days where I was like, I don't know if this is right. And it sounds weird to say because you're like, I don't know, when you're on stages and when you're doing a lot of ministry things, people think you're just not human.
Totally, and that there's no space for that if you're a good Catholic or a good Christian.
Right.
There's no space for you to have questions or doubts.
Yes, and honestly, I vocalized my doubts. Really healthy to do. Please, if you are doubting right now, and if you have serious intellectual, spiritual, emotional questions about the Catholic faith and her teachings, please talk to someone about it. Like, this is a good thing. We want to hear from you. The Catholic Church does not shut down human thinking. We actually champion it.
Right. That's true. I was going to say encourage, but champion's a way better word for it.
We champion thinking. Dogma does not shut down thinking. It actually encourages more. Doctrine does not shut down thinking. It encourages more conversation. And honestly, I vocalized it. I read a lot of books. I mean, I have the time to a seminary. I mean, I engage with the questions, talked with my spiritual, director about it. Honestly, I think a lot of it was actually spiritual. So this is kind of cool to think about, and just to be aware of, like, this isn't just an intellectual battle. Your soul, my soul, your soul. Our souls are at stake, like there is a demonic presence. Our battle is not against flesh and blood, but it's against powers and wickedness and principalities and darkness. I honestly think what I experienced was demonic in nature. I've never experienced that intense of doubting before in a really long time. And it was kind of cool. Someone was telling me, like, Saint Michael and Satan, their initial battle as pure spirits, they don't have physical bodies. So it wasn't like swords and like lightsabers. You know what I mean? They're pure intellects.
Yeah.
So this is obviously, I think, just theological speculation, but the initial battle between the angels was intellectual. It was a battle of ideas. And listen, people, what ideas are going around right now that are bringing so much polarization, just fear? Think about all the ideas going around about our human bodies, what we can decide to be. I mean, what I'm seeing right now around the world, to me, is the most biblical confirmation that what we're experiencing is not just flesh and blood. It's a battle of ideas.
Totally.
And there's a battle going on. So, yeah, I can honestly say, like, I've experienced doubts most of my life as a Christian. Back to doubting Thomas. He's a saint. Doubting is not a sin. When doubting, I think, leads to despair is where you can get into trouble. But if you keep your doubts to yourself, it's going to end really bad. And I hope you have people in your life. If you have doubts, like, go talk to your local priest.
Youth ministers.
Yeah.
And priests in your life, and if your pastor, your church, or whoever it is, to talk with them about it.
Yes.
I wish, Andrew and I could have you over and talk with you about everything. But that's just not a space that we have right now. But like that encouragement to vocalize them to someone who can help you with them is really important.
And I just want to confirm that desire in you that wants to know. Like, we desperately want to know. There are certain, appetites, desires that God has given us, and one of them is to know.
Right.
And this is a gift. I would not want you to believe something that's a lie. I would hate for you to force you to believe something like become religious, which, sounds like some disease, that you're going to get when, these days, it's like if you're religious, it's like, well, you have problems, it's like, no, I've actually thought this through so intensely and experienced God in so many different ways and suffered in so many other different ways and wrestled. I think Israel means to wrestle with God. I can honestly say in my life, I just feel like I'm wrestling with God most of the time. Seminary first year was a solid wrestling match with God, And you know what? He loves it. He really loves it.
It's true, because he wants to answer our questions, because he has all the answers.
Yes, and he's not holding out. And listen, there's things like divine hiddenness and some other really deep, you want to get into free will and determinism, and we can get into conceptualism and all the isms you want. Like, there's things to engage with. But I'd say as a human being, we have the capacity to know. We, have been given, a will and an intellect and a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And God actually wants us to use these. I mean, the popes and saints and the magisterium texts of the church have written extensively on the gift of reason and faith. You can find them online. God does not want you to shut down your brain for you to be a Christian.